In the near future, a mutated form of rabies known as mad dog disease spreads through the world, quickly jumping from animals to humans. It only takes 90 seconds for a bitten person to go rabid, so soon over 7 billion humans are either dead or infected. The ones that become zombies have a very high resistance to pain and suffer from hyperviolence, which means they're eager to kill. The world becomes a post-apocalyptic wasteland and violent zombie hordes become the norm. In an underground nuclear base, the military has gathered all the healthy survivors they could find. The soldiers have also teamed up with scientists from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to run some experiments and find a cure. However, to do so, they first need to find patient zero since their blood holds the answer. They keep a bunch of zombies locked up in cages and regularly interrogate them to determine where it all started. Morgan is a civilian who was bitten and infected, however he didn't transform. It seems his blood is resistant against the virus, yet they haven't been able to make a vaccine with it. Thanks to that bite, Morgan is capable of understanding and communicating with zombies, so he's joined Dr. Gina's team to help with the research. The soldiers bring in a raging zombie for interrogation, securing him to a chair inside a glass cell. The process starts by playing some music, which is painful for zombies. The infected guy wriggles in pain on the chair as he tries to break the bindings to no avail. Once the zombie has suffered enough, Morgan turns off the music and starts speaking the growling language to communicate with the guy while sending notes to Gina through a tablet. After nicknaming the guy Joe, Morgan learns that he's from Minnesota and is one of the first few people who got infected. Trying to connect with Joe to make him say more, Morgan admits that sometimes he experiences intense urges too and begins talking about what's left of the world, saying he hates it here as much as the zombies do. At that moment Colonel Knox uses a microphone to interrupt the interrogation, which sends Joe into another raging fit. Frustrated, Morgan leaves the glass cell to give Joe time to calm down, however Knox sees this wait as a waste of time and urges Morgan to continue the interrogation. In the cell, Joe is getting crazier by the second, which annoys Knox so much that he ends up shooting him in frustration. Gina and Morgan immediately get furious because Joe could have provided more clues, and Gina threatens to have Knox removed from his command if he abuses his authority in her lab ever again. Morgan punches the cell, proving he indeed has some violent urges that he must keep contained every day. Afterward Morgan hides in the bathroom and tries to calm down. Soon Gina finds him and offers her comfort, so Morgan uses the chance to rant about the situation and the pressure he's under. Gina also offers him some medicine, but Morgan turns it down and admits he's been having nightmares about his wife, who was bitten too. They both admit they miss the simple life and end up doing the dirty in the bathroom. Minutes later, Knox sees them leave the bathroom and mocks Gina for her bond with Morgan, so Gina accuses him of being jealous and says Knox would never have a chance with her. Meanwhile Morgan goes to the underground cells and stops by a very specific cell at the back. It turns out that the zombie there is his wife Janet, who was bitten the same day as him. Morgan gives him an injection with a serum based on his blood, which doesn't cure her but at least slows down the infection and keeps her lucid. At first Janet smacks it away, but after Morgan begs her to cooperate, she says that she still remembers the music and gets the injection. The next day, the soldiers bring to the cell a zombie nicknamed Pete. When they're about to tie him to the chair, he fights against the bindings until he breaks free and immediately attacks the soldiers. As the men struggle to keep him down, Dr. Scooter rushes into the cell to help, only for his arm to get bitten in the process. The team immediately takes Scooter to the medical room, and Scooter keeps asking them not to let him turn. They inject him with the serum and Gina cuts Scooter's arm off right before the 90 seconds run off. At first it seems he's alright and everyone celebrates, but suddenly Scooter goes into shock and the group has to hurry to tie him down before he transforms. They aren't fast enough and Scooter sits up growling, so Knox shoots him down and says that's what Scooter wanted when the others get angry. Morgan and Gina have no choice but to accept he's right. Later while the soldiers wash the cell, Knox gets drunk in the bathroom. Gina has a breakdown in private, but Morgan finds her and comforts her through it. Then they visit the memorial of Scooter's son, leaving a little cupcake for his birthday. The following day, they try interrogating Pete again. Morgan is angry over the loss of Scooter and keeps using the music to torture Pete for longer than usual, turning it on and off a couple of times just to mess with him. When the questions finally start, Peter shares he's from Minnesota and that he was infected in October, but he refuses to say more. Getting angrier, Morgan snaps and points his gun at Pete, who still doesn't answer the question and just says do it. Frustrated, Morgan leaves the cell. Later Gina and Morgan meet with General Pierce and explain that both Joe and Pete were infected in Minnesota by a very early group. Gina wants to expand the search into Minnesota since the chances of patient zero being there seem to be high. Knox immediately complains about the idea, saying it would only cause them to lose more soldiers. However, Gina keeps going, pointing out that the zombies have evolved into a more intelligent and dangerous breed, showing their strategic attacks. Morgan also reminds them that zombies can't lie. In the end, General Pierce authorizes a search in Minnesota. After the meeting, Morgan brings Janet another injection. As they chat, Janet realizes Morgan is having mixed feelings about her and Gina, but Morgan swears that Janet is his everything. Janet freaks out as she demands to be released, saying she would rather be free outside than safe in a hellhole. She also mentions how much she shares some human experiences like crying, so Morgan takes her hand and tells her not to lose hope because the injections will help. All the while, Morgan continues to have flashbacks of his old life with Janet. He kept insisting he wanted a child, but Janet wanted to wait to find the right surrogate. The couple was still very happy together and even had their own code to show their love. Later Gina takes another blood sample from Morgan while ranting about the fact they can't figure out why only he is immune. She's tried a few solutions on rats, but nothing has worked so far and the rats keep killing each other. Morgan's resistant blood can reduce the viral levels in the body, slow down infection, and calm the aggression, but the effect only lasts for 5 minutes. They're far from getting a vaccine yet, so Gina points out Janet's recovery isn't guaranteed and Morgan gets upset. At that moment Gina chooses to confess her love for him, however Morgan just leaves the room. That night, Morgan dreams about the night of the incident. He and Janet had been driving through the city and when they stopped at the traffic lights, 2 zombies jumped on their car and broke their windows. Morgan drove forward until the zombies fell, but when the car stopped even more zombies jumped on the vehicle and reached through the windows, biting both of them. In the present, Morgan wakes up from the nightmare with a scream. Sometime later, Gina discovers that she's pregnant with Morgan's child. She can't help having a breakdown since she has no hopes that Morgan will return her feelings. Meanwhile Knox and his men bring the fallen soldiers from the search mission to be cremated. After paying their respects, the soldiers get ready to move the bodies, only for a dead man to suddenly wake up and attack. It turns out he's a civilian zombie who dressed as a soldier to infiltrate the base. As the creature starts killing the medics and the soldiers one by one without hesitation, Knox sneaks around to get a gun, waiting for the right moment to strike. The alarm wails throughout the labs and soon more soldiers rush to the crematorium, where Knox is searching for the enemy that went into hiding. A newly transformed teammate jumps on him, so Knox quickly shoots him before he keeps on moving. At that moment the infiltrated zombie jumps out and tries to attack him, but when he's about to bite Knox, Morgan comes in to pull the creature back. The soldiers want to shoot him, however Morgan asks them to leave him alive for interrogation. Then Knox points his gun at the infected, who shocks them by instantly surrendering and asking to speak to Morgan. The zombie is taken to the glass cell and the music is turned on, however the guy isn't bothered. In fact he just sits there and takes out a cigarette to smoke. If it wasn't for his different colored eyes, nobody would be able to tell he isn't human. The soldiers found a campus ID on him, so Morgan nicknames him the Professor. The interrogation begins, yet the professor isn't intimidated and answers with vague philosophy. He admits he's been looking for Morgan, who apparently is very popular in the zombie community. When Morgan asks him why the music doesn't affect him, the professor explains that each zombie is unique just like humans, pointing out that Morgan's ability to talk to zombies is his own brand of infection uniqueness. This offends Morgan, who insists he isn't a zombie. The professor also says that the zombies are a more evolved species than humans, who destroy whenever they feel like it too. Then he shares how he was infected. That day he was giving a lecture at the university. He kept getting calls from his wife, so he went to the corridor to take it. When his wife told him about the chaos taking over the city, the professor heard a noise in the classroom and turned around to discover a horde of zombies breaking in and attacking everyone. The professor tried to run away, but soon the zombies were rushing through the corridors and infected students jumped on him, biting him. His body transformed but his mind was still clear enough to return home. However, as soon as he saw his wife and his daughter, the virus triggered his inner rage and forced him to eat them both. Morgan is disgusted by the story and calls him out for his lack of control, but the professor simply repeats that zombies have risen above the limitations of humanity. He doesn't think there's such a thing as a patient zero and ignores the questions to rant against the government and the system. This causes Morgan to finally snap and punch him before leaving the cell. After taking a moment to calm down, Morgan returns to the cell and accepts a cigarette, pretending to be friendly. The professor teases him by asking about Janet and says she doesn't need a cure because zombies are actually the solution to human infection. As the philosophical rambling continues, Morgan realizes that the professor is making him waste time on purpose. Getting suspicious, he uses a device to scan the zombie and when he finds nothing, he rushes to the cells. He finds Pete and shares his theory. Pete got captured on purpose as part of a plan. When Pete realizes Morgan is going to hurt him to make him talk, he tries to self-delete and falls unconscious. Morgan uses the scanner again and gets a signal, so he opens a scar on Pete's body and finds a hidden tracker. His theory turns out to be true. Pete let the soldiers capture him on purpose so the other zombies could find the location of the base, confirming they're becoming smarter and planning to attack. Morgan runs to inform Pierce of the incoming danger, so Pierce orders a full lockdown of the base. Unfortunately, the zombies get inside before they can finish securing the entrances and soon a bloodbath ensues as refugees are attacked without mercy. A creature sneaks to the cell area and releases all the prisoners, making the army even bigger. The soldiers try opening fire, but their numbers aren't enough and the zombies keep on advancing while killing everyone in sight. Soon the horde rushes through the tunnels and the labs are also invaded, causing everyone to start running in panic as more people get killed. Knox takes Gina through a safe escape route and Pierce tries to follow them as the zombies chase after them. However, Knox shoots down Pierce so the zombies stop to feed on him, giving him time to escape with Gina in the elevator. A horrified Gina insults Knox's actions, but Knox says it was a necessary sacrifice for survival. Furious, Gina takes his gun and stops the elevator. She wants to go back to the lab to get her samples since her research is their only hope, but Knox refuses and tries to stop her. In the struggle, the gun is accidentally fired and kills Knox. While the bloodbath continues in every corner of the base, a scientist tries to hide in the rat lab. However, a zombie finds her and quickly attacks her, knocking down the cages in the process. Now the infected rats are on the loose as well. Meanwhile, Morgan runs to the cells to free Janet and run away together. Morgan grabs a fire axe on the way and eventually they bump into Gina, who doesn't think it's a good idea to free Janet considering the injections were temporary. However, Morgan refuses to leave without her. At that moment, a zombie appears behind them, but Gina immediately shoots her down and then announces she'll be retrieving her samples. Morgan and Janet follow her to the lab fridge, and while Gina grabs what she needs, another zombie attacks only to immediately be killed by Morgan's axe. At the same time, the professor lets out a very loud roar and soon some zombies come to rescue him. Back to the trio, they climb into the vents, carefully avoiding some dangerous wires in the process. As they crawl away, Gina sees the refugee area through the grates and is horrified to discover a complete massacre. Their weight causes the grate to fall and now the zombies know where they are. The trio tries to keep on moving and finds the path blocked by a zombie rat that leaps toward them to attack, but Janet quickly grabs it and kills it with her bare hands. Then they discover the zombies are starting to crawl through the vents too. The group hurries up and Morgan has to kick a zombie until the vent breaks, dropping the creature to the ground. Morgan almost falls too, but Gina rescues him just in time. Eventually they finally reach the parking lot, where the professor is waiting for them. He explains he came to the base to kill Morgan because his blood could prevent the zombies from having a future, calling him the zombies' version of a patient zero. Morgan and the professor start to fight and the women try to help, but the professor easily overpowers them both. Using every object in the room, the men continue to fight and the professor knocks Morgan down, but Morgan quickly recovers and pushes the professor back to impale him on a pipe. Morgan gets hurt in the process as well, and before dying, the professor roars again to summon a huge horde. The trio starts running, but when they reach the door, Janet announces she's staying behind to slow the horde down. Morgan refuses, so Janet reveals she can sense Gina is pregnant to distract him and locks the door. After taking a moment to cry for his wife, Morgan escapes with Gina through an emergency tunnel that drops them in the woods. There are a lot of zombies around, yet Morgan is sure they'll make it. His bike is hidden nearby, so the couple jumps on it and speeds through the forest as the zombies begin chasing them in the distance. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.